All right, so we got to talk about Bitcoin and Michael Saylor. And there's some things that we need to be paying attention to. By the way, I'm Camila Stevenson, and around here we talk wealth. Something just happened with Michael Saylor's company, and I need to break it down for you because this can be an issue if things go in the wrong direction. And there's a real lesson that you should learn even from this scenario that is playing out in real time. First of all, go ahead and like the video, subscribe if you have not already. And I want to say this is not financial advice. Everything I share is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So do your own research, right? That's what we should be growing in our ability to do, is doing our own research. So I want to encourage you to do that. Now, today we're going to catch you up on what is happening with Bitcoin and Michael Saylor. Now, he runs a company called Strategy, which used to be called MicroStrategy. And for years, they did one thing. They bought Bitcoin and they held it. And Saylor became very famous for saying that he would never sell. And that was the entire identity. Now, that business owns more Bitcoin than any other public company on earth, over about 800,000 coins, right? So when this man even whispers that he's going to sell, trust me, the market is going to feel that. And this week, he did more than whisper. Just a few days ago, the company put out a new framework that gives them permission to sell up to $1.25 billion worth of Bitcoin. Now, they already had a small little sale event back, I think it was in May, and it was a small amount, just 32 coins, which is really nothing for them. And I believe it was to cover their dividends. But this is very different. This is them formally building the machine that lets them sell a lot more if they need to. So the company that said that they would never sell just wrote themselves a permission slip to sell. You got to pay attention to this. Now, let me actually explain what he's doing, because there's three pieces to this and I want you to understand them. So the first piece is the dividend problem. Strategy did not just buy Bitcoin with regular money. They raised a lot of cash by selling something called preferred stock. And think of preferred stock like this. It is almost like Saylor borrowed money from investors, and in exchange, he promised to pay them a set amount every single year, like a landlord who has to pay the mortgage no matter what. Okay. That is how the dividend company work. And I don't want to assume you know that. So that yearly promise is the dividend. And those promises have piled up to where the company now owes well over $1 billion a year in payments every single year, whether Bitcoin goes up or down. So that is the pressure that he has to deal with underneath everything. The second piece is, where does that money come from? Because Bitcoin sitting in a wallet does not pay you anything. It doesn't produce income. It just sits there and hopefully it goes up. So if you owe $1 billion a year in cash payments and your main asset does not produce any cash, you have a problem. You have to get the money from somewhere. And one of the only places Saylor can get it is by selling some of the Bitcoin. And that is what this whole framework is really about. It's about him admitting out loud that he may have to sell the thing that he swore he would never sell just to pay the bills he promised to pay. The third piece is the buyback. And this is the part that tells you that he's now in a defense stance. The same time he talked about selling, he also said that they would spend up to $1 billion buying back their own stock. Companies usually do that when they think their stock has been beaten down too far and they're trying to put a floor under it to stop the bleeding and prop up the price. So let's analyze this entire picture together. He is raising cash, possibly by selling Bitcoin and using money to defend his own stock. And I want you to know that's not the move of a company that is positioned on offense, where they're buying everything in sight. That is a company circling the wagons, okay, and protecting itself. And so you just have to understand where this picture is headed, possibly. I want to say also, with this being said, I'm just giving you the understanding of everything. I am invested in Bitcoins, but I also know the potential of either side that this can go. Now, here's why the market got nervous about this and why some people are throwing around the word Black Swan event. Okay. So, for years, a huge part of Bitcoin's strength was the belief that Saylor was a wall. He buys and he never sells. And he was really, because of that, the floor underneath the price. And a lot of people bought Bitcoin partly because they felt safe knowing he was down there holding. Okay. So the danger is not really those 32 coins or even the $1 billion. The danger is the story changing. The moment the market stops seeing him as the guy who never sells and starts seeing him as a guy who might have to sell, that safety blanket is now gone. And if people start to fear that a forced seller is coming, some of them might try to sell first or try to get out ahead of everything else. Okay. So that is how a small sale can cause a huge reaction, not because of the coins, but because of the belief that cracked. Now, will it actually become a black swan or some giant crash? Well, I'm not going to tell you that it will. Okay. Because honestly, nobody knows. It could fizzle out, the sales could stay small and the market shrugs it off and Bitcoin just keeps moving like normal, or the pressure could build. He could be forced to sell more into an already weak market and it could get real messy. Both are really on the table. We just have to see what happens. What I want you to walk away with is not a prediction. It is the understanding to watch the right thing. Watch whether the selling stays small and controlled or whether the obligation starts forcing his hand. That's the real signal, because a lot of the coins that you own are connected to Bitcoin's movement. And here's the part that matters for you that I want you to recognize, because this is the lesson underneath the entire story. Saylor's problem was never that he believed in Bitcoin. His problem is the structure he built around it. He used borrowed money and yearly promises to hold his assets. And that structure can force him to sell at the worst possible moment when the price is down and he's under pressure. That is a trap. It is not about owning the wrong thing. It is about owning the right thing the wrong way in a structure that can squeeze you. So flip this to yourself, right? The goal is to hold what you believe in a way that nobody and nothing can force your hand. No debt hanging over it, no obligations making you sell at the bottom, held in a structure that lets you simply wait. That is what real strong hands look like, not just conviction, but a setup that protects that conviction. And that is exactly why I'm careful about where I hold my assets. For the long term, part of my XRP and digital commodities and metals, I use a Roth account through iTrust Capital. And the appeal for me is freedom. There's no pressure on that account, nothing forcing me to touch it. It just sits and it grows on my timeline. And whatever it becomes is mine without the tax bite at the end. It is the opposite of Saylor's setup. No obligations pulling on it, just patience doing its work. And if you want to protect your digital assets in a way where you don't have to wind up owing anything or having any obligations, then you can sign up for a Roth IRA account. They also have a premium custody account, which is a closed loop account that helps to protect your crypto. Now, the link is in the description. And when you fund your account, they will give you $100 funding bonus. So take advantage of that opportunity, because that's something that they're giving to my community. If you do happen to call them, just let them know that you come from my community so that you can receive that $100 free funding bonus. And if you're watching all of this and you're still wondering whether your own holdings are set up in a strong way or a fragile way, then that is a real question. And it's exactly what I help people to sort out in my clarity call. We get you very clear on how to structure, and we just make sure that there's no leakage there. And we get you clear on where you're headed so that you can feel confident about your future. Also, we look at what you actually own, how it's held, and whether anything in your setup could force a bad decision later. Now, the link is in the description for that as well. I just want to know, do you think this is going to end up good for Bitcoin or bad? All right. I want to hear your thoughts on it. If this is going to level out, or if you think we're up for a huge cascade. Give me what you are understanding out there. I do read every comment and I would love to hear from you. And I want you to watch this because listen, the man who said he'll never sell just gave himself permission to sell. And how that plays out is going to tell us a lot about this market. So keep your eyes on this. And as always, I want you to stay wise, stay wealthy, and I'll see you in the next video.